Hello and welcome to my owner's review for the first generation XC90. Before you switch off, because a 26-year-old is trying to talk about Volvos, this is my 6th Volvo in as many years and my second XC90 before I turned 26. Now the model I've got here is the XC90 Executive, which at the time was the highest spec available. It is the 2.4 D5 engine. On the Executive model you get BBS split rims, would you believe, on a Volvo. And you also get a full leather interior that's apparently softer than the standard models, and even the bolsters are supposedly thicker and softer. So inside, both the driver's and passenger seats are electric. The driver's has 3 memory settings. You've got nav in the dash, although this one's been disabled because it has an aftermarket stereo. You've got in the centre a fridge, room for 4 bottles maybe. Now speaking of bottles, let's talk about something important, the amount of cup holders. So you've got 2 in the centre, which is standard on all the XC90s. The only difference with the Executive model is you've got the fridge for the extra 4 bottles, but what you do have is 2 places in the glove box to place drinks. You've got in each front door card a space for a bottle. In each rear door card you've got space for 3 bottles. And then on top of that, due to the 3rd row of seats, you've got 2 more cup holders on each side of the car. So plenty of cup holders, which anyone with a Mercedes of the same age will know they are seriously lacking, as you can't even fit a normal sized cup in the E-Class and C-Class of the same era. Now for this 2nd and 3rd row of seats. So all 3 seats are adjustable in slide. Now the driver's seat is set up for me, and I do have quite long legs, and I can still just about fit in the back. I'll slide the seat back and I've got plenty of room. What's good about the centre seat on the XC90s is this, so it doubles as a child booster seat. On the Executive models, the armrest is actually a DVD player which supplies the rear screens, but I wouldn't count on it working on your purchase. I've not seen one working myself. They didn't work on my old XC90, which was an SE, but the screens didn't work either. Personally, I would rather have the SE spec because that doesn't have the fridge and it doesn't have the DVD player, which means that this console here is actually removable. There is a way to just pull the console out and it leaves just a carpeted bit in between the driver and passenger seat, which is good because say you had a child in this seat, you were using the booster seat, this seat slides all the way forwards and further obviously in the SE spec, and you can practically have a child sat between the driver and passenger. Now for the 3rd row of seats, so they're accessible that way. You probably want to slide them forward to get in, and they just flip up. And that slides out. Lift this here. To close. Particularly practical for an adult to sit in the 3rd row, but it's possible, just about. Providing that the 2nd row is a little bit forward. I do have quite long legs, but it is possible for an adult to sit in the back here. few bits of storage. Now, also something you would get in the higher spec models are 4 sets of wireless headphones that are controlled here, that link to the TV screens in the back of the headrest, which means that the driver and front passenger can't hear whatever the occupants in the rear are watching on the TVs. Probably won't be so easy to get out. Now regarding the boot, so you've got a split tailgate, which is nice, and obviously you've got the 7 seats, which I think you still get a reasonable amount of boot space even with the 7 seats up, but with them down you've obviously got a huge amount of room. And this leaves you with the largest estate car you could ever possibly need. Now this is how I tended to use my first XC90, with one second row seat up for the child seat and the rest of the car available for moving stock and things like that, which is obviously still more space than you could ever possibly wish for. Now my final comment on this versus maybe an estate such as the V70 is that the back doors are absolutely huge, and this level that a 4x4 is at is much easier on your back for getting kids in to the child seats, which makes a massive difference. The doors on V70s are very small for some reason on this age of car. Now enough about the interior, onto the boring stuff that if you actually want to buy one you'll be interested in. So the engine to have is the 2.4 D5, but if you really want a reliable engine you'll want the Euro 3. Now the Euro 3 is the original 2.4 D5 engine with the all black top like this. It has 163 bhp, and the only issues that they ever really tend to have, unless they're really serious issues, you'd have to be really unlucky, are a loss of power due to the engine mounts cracking. It has active engine mounts, so there are vacuum hoses going to the mounts. When they crack, that causes a loss of vacuum and affects the power. The only other problem that I've ever heard of, not encountered, I've never had any issues with my D5 engines, are the injectors. They may have injector issues, and the clocks, although that's more on the S60 V70s. As for running costs, the tax yearly is just over £300. The fuel consumption is average about 30 miles per gallon, which is respectable in its class, definitely. But the advantages of buying the XC90 over other SUVs is that the running costs will be a lot lower. There's no air suspension to worry about. At the time the XC90 was produced, it was owned by Ford, so parts aren't that expensive compared to other manufacturers. Now you probably won't find one with engine issues when you're buying, but the one thing to look out for on these is the gearbox. Now you'll probably want an automatic, because driving a large car like this as a manual won't be much fun. As much as people love manuals, it's a lot of car to have the hassle of changing gearing, and you'll most likely have other things to worry about with the 6 other seats, probably full of kids. But this does bring Volvo's biggest downfall over this era of cars, which is the Geartronic gearbox. Now it's an Ace in Warner box, which is Japanese, but on the Volvos they call them sealed for life, and they don't have scheduled oil changes for the gearboxes. And this means that when looking for your next car, what you'll want to look for is either a gearbox that hasn't been touched at all, or one that's been serviced every 40,000 miles or something like that. This is because if you get one that's got about 150k on and then change the oil, it can actually create issues with the gearbox, whereas if you just leave it alone it will probably last a bit longer. Otherwise you'll want one that's been changed every 40k, but that's very unlikely, as the people that bought these cars, just sent them to the dealers most likely. Don't worry massively about mileage, look more at the service history. You'll want one that's been serviced approximately every 9,000 miles, that would be a good aim. The gearboxes on these early models don't tend to cause any issues until about 180,000 miles, unless they've been used for towing, so look for one that doesn't have a tow bar, ideally. Price wise, this is a 150k mileage car with a full service history. With it being the executive model, you'd be looking to pay about £3,000. If you're wanting to get something that looks a bit better, you'll want to look for a post 2007 model, such as the R design, where you'll lose a lot of this black plastic. If you are looking for a later model, the method still applies. Obviously look for one with a good service history, but with the Euro 4 engine they do have issues with the swirl flap actuator arm breaking or coming off, and also the EGRs can be more temperamental on the later models. Now, I've probably missed loads of things, but I'm doing what I can while staying at home. I'll find some footage that I recorded before the lockdown of the car on the road. The engines can be a little bit noisy compared to the competition, such as the 3 litre V6s in other cars. But drive them sensibly and this shouldn't be an issue. This is my first attempt at a review, so go easy on me. But if you want to know anything else about the cars and ownership, then just leave a comment. There's plenty more that I do know about the cars. I just can't organise my thoughts enough to get everything into one video. If you're already subscribed, then thanks for staying with me through this next step. If you're new, then please do subscribe. What I'm looking to do is buy a new car every month after the lockdown, drive it as much as possible and give my honest opinions on what the car is like to live with. I've got my V70 and my 1 Series to do as soon as possible, but this is where we are at the moment. Thanks for watching, please subscribe, comment, all feedback is very much appreciated, and look after yourselves and each other over the next few months.